I've been building SaaS companies for the last 20 years. I sold my first one for $15 million and I walked away with only 500 grand. So then I did the opposite. I bootstrapped my next company, Groove, from 0 to 5 million a year with a team of 5. And I own almost all of it, 88.02% to be exact. It pays me more every year than that entire exit did. Then I built Helply and scaled it to $1 million ARR in the first 7 months. And we're just getting started. So across 2 decades and a handful of companies, I've made just about every expensive mistake there is, and I've paid for all of them in money, in time, and in a couple of years of my life I'm not getting back. That's why I thought, why don't I just consolidate all of this into a set of lessons that I can share? And that's how this video was born. I'll be going over 2 decades of hard-earned lessons. If you build or run a SaaS company, this might be the most useful video you watch all year. So let's get into it. Number 1, turning down VC money was the best decision I ever made. Everyone will tell you a big raise is the goal. For most founders, it's a trap. My first company raised $3.5 million, had 4 co-founders, and sold for 15 million. Sounds great, but the thing is, I walked away with 500 grand. With Groove, I did the opposite. No outside money, so I answered to customers instead of investors. And the goal was profit instead of the next round. I kept almost all of the ownership, and it pays me more every year than the entire exit did. So funding isn't a trophy. It's you selling the most valuable thing you own at the cheapest possible stage when you have the least leverage. So my advice is this: chase revenue you actually keep, not a valuation you might one day cash in. Number 2, protect your ownership like your life depends on it. Early on, I brought in a strategic partner and gave them a big chunk of equity, the kind that comes with a say in decisions. It seemed smart at the time, but years after that, even though I'd started the company, built the product, and grown the revenue, and even though I was still the majority owner and shareholder, this person could control my salary and their vote could block me in my own company. I felt like an operator in someone else's business with my name on the door. In the end, I had to wire $2.7 million just to buy back control and get to my 88% ownership. So learn from my mistake. The cap table is the one thing you really can't rebuild easily. You can fix a bad product, a bad hire, a bad quarter. You cannot ungive away ownership or the control that comes with it. Guard it like the one asset that actually matters, because it is. Number 3, don't rebuild something that already worked. Back in 2016, we were flying. We had product market fit, happy customers, exponential growth, a blog pulling in leads every single day. Everything was working. And I looked at all of it and decided to rebuild the entire product from scratch anyway, because I wanted it to be better. It was the worst call of my career. Within a year, it was obvious we'd bitten off way more than we could chew. It was missed deadline after missed deadline. We lost the momentum we'd spent years building. Growth flattened into a plateau that dragged on for years. And honestly, it put me in a dark place for a long time. Don't tear down something that's working because it isn't perfect. Perfect is the enemy of a company that's already winning. Number 4, most of the people you hire will slow you down. You've heard hire fast. Now I spent over $8 million on employees and consultants, and most hires don't speed a startup up. They slow it down. You know the ones I'm talking about. The strategist who wants to workshop a framework for 3 weeks before he'll touch anything. The guy who's always busy but somehow never ships, though he's great at protecting his own turf. The big company hire who can't move until there's a process doc and a couple more people under him to manage. That's why I always say, hire slow, keep the team small, protect speed like oxygen. My company runs on 5 people on purpose. Number 5, talk to 100 customers before you write a single line of code. With my first SaaS, I built first and asked questions later. I spent months building something I was sure people wanted before I'd really checked what they did. And that is the most expensive way in the world to learn what your customers actually need. So with everything since, we don't write a line of code until we've done 100+ customer interviews. And you're not fishing for people who say, oh, that's nice. You're hunting for hair on fire problems, the kind where people are already throwing money at a bad solution. If you can't find that, no amount of good code can save you. Number 6, your support is either growing your company or killing it. I've run a customer support company for 12 years. So trust me on this one. Most founders treat support as a cost center, something to minimize, outsource, and understaff. But that's fully backwards. Support is where your retention actually lives. It's the last impression a frustrated customer gets before they decide whether to stay or walk away. If you handle it well, they renew and refer their friends. But if you handle it badly, they leave without ever telling you why. Now, the problem is the more customers you add, the more tickets you get, the more reps you hire. And most of those tickets are the same few questions over and over. So support costs climb right alongside your growth, and you start cutting corners in one place you shouldn't. The right move now is to let AI handle the repetitive tier 1 stuff so it gets answered instantly, and frees your humans up for the more complex conversations that actually keep customers around. And that's the exact thing I'm building right now. So here's my one plug for the whole video. It's called Helply. It's the AI that takes all that repetitive tier 1 support off your plate, resolves it instantly, and hands your team their time back. The part people don't believe at first is that the software is free and you only pay when the AI actually works. If that sounds interesting, there's a link in the description for it. All right, back to the list. Number 7, your demos are lying to you. For years, I'd walk out of demos on a high. Every prospect said the same thing. This is exactly what we need. This is perfect. When can we start? I'd basically mark it down as closed. Then I'd look at the numbers a few weeks later, and barely 2% of those slam dunk demos had actually bought. It took me way too long to figure out what was going on. In the demo, you're talking to the excited version of them. They're picturing everything working perfectly, their whole team adopting it overnight, all their problems vanished. That person doesn't sign the contract. The version of them that shows up a few days later does. And that person remembers every tool that overpromised and wasted their time. Adds up how many hours setup is going to eat, and eventually talks themselves out of it. So I stopped selling the dream in our demos. Now I sell the first 30 days instead. Exactly what happens on day 1, exactly what I need from them, exactly what their life looks like a month in. When it comes to demos, boring beats exciting, because boring is the part they actually believe. Number 8, a business can look perfectly healthy while it's dying. This one cost me 3 years. By 2024, Groove looked like a dream on paper. We were doing over 400 grand a month in recurring revenue at 60% margins. From the outside, everything looked great, but underneath, we hadn't actually grown in 3 years. And the healthy revenue and fat margins made it really easy to not look too closely, which is exactly the trap. Good-looking numbers can hide the fact that your growth is dead and the market has moved on without you. The only reason I caught it is that I forced myself to get on the phone and make 500 cold calls to my own market. What I heard was that the all-in-one product we built the entire company around had stopped being the thing people wanted. If I'd kept staring at my nice revenue chart instead of talking to customers, I'd have found out far too late to do anything about it. So track the number that tells you the truth, not the one that makes you feel good. And when you're not sure which is which, go talk to actual customers to figure it out. 9, brand is the cheapest growth you'll ever get. For most of my career, I thought brand was a waste of money, something big companies did to feel important. If I couldn't trace $1 spent to $1 earned, I didn't want to touch it. That thinking cost me years of slower growth than I needed. What changed my mind is a simple fact about buyers. At any given moment, something like 95% of your market is not ready to buy. They don't have the budget yet, or their pain isn't bad enough yet, or timing is just wrong. Most founders throw everything they have at fighting over the 5% who are ready right now. Brand is the long game of being the name that the other 95% already trust when their moment finally comes. You're not buying a sale today. You're making sure that when they're ready in 6 months, you're the first company they think of, and ideally the only one. That's the highest leverage thing you can build, and it keeps compounding while you sleep. Number 10, become the face of your company. If I could only keep one of these lessons, it might be this one. For over a decade, my main marketing channel wasn't ads, and it wasn't a sales team. It was me. It started years ago with a blog where I documented our whole journey to our first 100 grand in revenue. Out in the open, numbers and all. And I just never stopped. Every day, I share what we're building, what's working, and what's blowing up in our face. And over the years, 15 to be exact, that turned into 50,000 email subscribers and 65,000 people on LinkedIn who actually care about what I'm doing. That audience still sends us customers today. And the part most founders miss is what it does to your sales cycle. When somebody already knows you and trusts you before you ever get on a call, closing them is easy. I've watched companies with 20 outbound reps lose deals to me because I had a newsletter and a face people recognized. Anyone can copy your product in a weekend now, but nobody can copy you. Number 11, niche beats big every single time. Early on, an advisor I trusted told me to go wide, expand the product, serve everyone, chase the biggest market I could. It seemed like solid growth advice at the time, so I took it seriously. It turned out to be some of the worst advice I've ever gotten. Because when you try to be everything for everyone, you end up being no one for anyone. You blend in and nobody can tell what you're even for. I ran Groove in one narrow niche. I've gone head to head with giants like Zendesk for over a decade doing it. And it was still able to run over 50% margins with a tiny team and no funding. Even as a buyer myself, I don't want the tool that does 40 things okay. I want the one that does my one thing perfectly. So pick the niche everyone else swears is too small and go be the best in the world at it. Number 12, stop charging for seats. Start charging for outcomes. This one's a new thing, and I've bet my whole new company on it called Helply. For 20 years, SaaS has been sold the exact same way. You pay per seat, per person who logs in every single month, whether the software actually did anything for you or not. Think about how strange that is. 20 support agents on one of the big legacy tools runs you over 30 grand a year before a single problem gets solved. And you pay the same whether you handle 100 tickets that month or 10,000. The vendor wins no matter what, and you carry all the risks that even works. That model is on its way out. Now that AI is doing the actual work, people don't want to pay for access anymore. They want to pay for results. It's exactly why I made Helply free to use and only charge when the AI actually does the work. The founders who figure out how to charge for the outcome instead of the seat are going to own the next 10 years. Last one, and it's the one almost nobody talks about, honestly. SaaS is hard. Not hard like a tough week, hard like it can actually take you apart if you let it. When I was 33, I was running out of savings, no revenue coming in, comparing myself to every founder who looked like they had it all figured out, and sitting at the lowest point I'd ever been at. There were stretches of burnout and anxiety where I honestly wasn't sure I'd make it through. What I've learned is that founders who actually last aren't the ones who grind themselves into the ground to prove a point. They're the ones who build something profitable and calm enough that they're still standing 5 years later, 10 years later, 15 years later. They protect the parts of their life that keep them sane. For me, that's my family more than anything else. Because here's the truth. Your company cannot survive you burning out. If you break it, it breaks. This is a marathon, and the only way to win is to still be running when everyone else has quit. So if I had to put all of it into one sentence, it's this: own as much as you can, stay lean, obsess over your customers, and build something profitable enough to survive your own mistakes, because you're going to make plenty of them. Now, support is one of those costs that keeps climbing with every customer you add. It's exactly the kind of thing I've spent this whole video telling you to keep lean, and Helply is how you can do that. The software is free and you only pay for when the AI actually does the work. So your support stops scaling against you and you only pay for the results. That sounds interesting? Feel free to book a quick demo at the link below and we'll run your numbers against what you're paying right now. And if you want the full story of how I bootstrapped grew to $5 million a year with 5 people, that one's right here.